Good morning. Welcome to Things You Might Have Heard for today, which happens to be Monday, May the 16th, 2022, which actually means these are things you might not have heard, although many of them are things you probably did hear for the past weekend, going from Friday morning all the way to about 5 a.m. Central Time here, where we pull the numbers, pull all the details, all the data from our feeds, and line them up. We get a chance to put everything from the weekend into a big long list of things, about 92 stories total. And we pull from the top 30 stories that you said were most engaging, you plus the Facebook and Twitter algorithms, and then picked about 12 stories. We've got a lot of stories to get through. So it's going to be hopefully more lightning round than slow slog, but there's a lot of stuff in there to go into that is really layered and detailed. A lot of things that you may have missed that apparently you thought were important enough to talk about because they rank pretty high. But in some cases, they really aren't the most important things going on, which tends to be life. There are a lot of things that we think about that are really important to us that really mean nothing to very other people. We at the Conversation Project call ourselves your news side piece. We like to give ourselves the moniker of being your tertiary news source. These are stories mostly sort of off the beaten path, some of them from some very weird and almost fringe like sources that allow you to kind of get things and chat about things that don't get stuck in mainstream media. We're going to go pretty mainstream media to start this thing off and go some things that also need to be kept in things we think we need to be kept up, things need to be kept importance. We're going Brittany Griner Day, as you can see. Also, Britney Spears, which may or may not be important, but people care about Britney. Let's get into this in mere moments. First, remind you that you can stop by our website, thisistheconversationproject.com, and see all the details, all the big stuff, all the awesomeness that happens behind the scenes, what's going on, and how you can be a part of what's happening, keeping things going, if you will. Story number one starts off like this one. 198 mass shootings in 2022 already, including the Buffalo, New York attack. This from NPR.org over the weekend. Sixth story of the top listing of 30 stories. That's where this one ranked in as an engagement. And we'll get to the actual shootings, a few shootings in a moment. But this is the overlying topic of the day, an overlying topic on all the news channels locally. And they're talking about it because they're locals coverage for local crimes. And of course, nationally, this is going to be the big deal. I'm not sure how Fox is covering it, but MSNBC and CNN this morning are all covering as a way of the fact that this crime was essentially blatant. It was, all the signs were there, all the clues are there to say this is a hate thing, and how it will be actually prosecuted, we will see going forward. Now that number, we are 4.5 months into this year. I don't have the day of the year put in front of me, but we are not even halfway through the year. We've had 198 mass shootings. Mass shootings are basically identified as shootings where 4 or more people are injured or killed. And this is not a good look, not a good sign, not good for us. We have some sort of problem as Americans where this thing is so prolific. Maybe it is a gun problem in a sense where there's a lot of guns out there. Maybe it is a person problem where we're not understanding people out there. Maybe it is a racial and cultural problem where some people just aren't figuring out how to deal with different situations. We'll talk about that deeper in just a moment when we go into the shootings from the weekend. But this should not be happening. 198 mass shootings, 198 shootings in general is a lot. 198 mass shootings is a big deal. There is a fix. There is some sort of fix where we cannot have at least 198 by 5 months in. We can't eliminate all tragedy, can't eliminate all death, can't just wave a magic wand and say, poof, I'm the man to make these things happen. But there are things that can be done to alleviate a whole lot of this. This is a whole lot of tears and prayers and thoughts going out for what seems like unnecessary events. We should not have had this many shootings, mass shootings, in such a short period of time. So, 2 of the shootings that happened this weekend. Actually, there was a third one happening that was reported on late last night, early this morning, that will probably be in the range for tomorrow to talk about. So that doesn't even count that 198. But Buffalo shooting, 10 people killed in racially motivated mass shooting at a supermarket. We actually had like 5 different postings of this with updates along the way all weekend long. It's happening or towards the end of the week and with details through the weekend. And then happening yesterday, multiple people shot at church in Laguna Woods OC sheriff. That's Orange County Sheriff. LA Times with that one. That one was the top one because it popped up at the right time and took on a life of its own late in the range of people peeking up on stuff. The Buffalo shooting, that first one we put out there, was the second one I think we put out there. There was two early ones that were out there, and that one I believe was the second one. The other one ranged somewhere between 5 and 7 as well. Now, details on the Buffalo shooting have been pretty abundant because we have all weekend to deal with it. A gunman drove hours to a supermarket in Buffalo, essentially knowing what he was doing, as that supermarket served as the only supermarket for a predominantly black area. It was essentially a food desert until they brought that supermarket in. So it was where everyone in the neighborhood went to go shop. It was a predominantly black neighborhood. The shooter was a white person. He shot with a automatic rifle that had the N-word on it, and "This is your reparations" written on the gun. This was a blatant, this was out there. This was a person who essentially was a normal kid, normal teen, normal guy, until pandemic came down, and he basically got radicalized while during all the isolation of the pandemic. And it took whatever it did to trigger this thing. He actually drove here a couple times to survey the actual target, survey what was going on, and see what was going down. This was premeditated. This was definitely planned. This is something that's going to have a whole lot of books thrown at this guy, assuming it's taken in context. I'm going to just leave that like that. Now, this other story, multiple people shot at the church. This was an Asian congregation church. I can't remember exactly. It might have been a Lutheran, it might have been whatever. It was a church that was primarily Asian populated, and they believed that it was an older Asian person who came in to commit the crime. So they believe in this case, early on, it might have just been someone disgruntled with someone in the population, either in the church themselves or just in the general area. He came in after church service, and during they have communal lunch service after every church service. They came in during then. What happened here was, within about 5 or so minutes, the parishioners were able to subdue the shooter, hog time with an extension cord, and wait for police to get there. So some fast acting people were able to manage to subdue the guy and make this a lot less tragic than it could have been. So this is coming from, what's also sad, a lot of extra security and a lot of extra training for church members when things happen. I remember 2 years ago when more than 2 years ago, when Dylan Ruth was an issue, my church, which is it's essentially all comers. It's not a truly factional church on any particular race or ethnicity or creed. It's basically all mixed. So we had a extensive amount of extra training, to include going over the fact that many people, I was on the deacon board, so I got a chance to know how the plans with. You have a good idea of who was actually had concealed carried weapons in case something just happened. We upped the security. We had an incident like somewhere where some guy just kind of ran the stage and took the microphone and started praising the Lord, which is great. It's a little scary when some random guy just rushes the stage while someone's doing something. It's things that people have to be vigilant about. It's weird that people have to put so much extra thought into security in a place where you should feel most secure, and that is a house of worship. But that's just 2 of shootings. There might have been 4 mass shootings the weekend. And like I said, the one that we'll talk about, I'm pretty sure tomorrow, happened at a flea market in Houston, I believe. I don't have the story in front of me, but there was a flea market in Houston where 3 people were shot, or at least we got the word from it in the news late, or as we're posting now, early this morning. It was after we basically fed the beast for the evening. We got to pick up the pace because we got a lot of things to go to, so apologize. Former NXT wrestler, WWE NXT superstar Pirotta immediately joins OnlyFans after being released. Totalsports.com on this one. Number 4, TotalProSports.com, give them their propers. Number 4 out of 30 stories to look at, and out of 90 or so stories in total, because you folks like you some OnlyFans. I'm not sure if you're that big fans of Pirotta, but anytime we put something OnlyFans in there, or anything semi adult content, like, people react. And we're about clicks, we're about sensationalism. We have to say that. So that happened. So after being released a few weeks ago, she went straight to OnlyFans to try to pick up the pace, pick up the cash, pick up her career. I'm not sure exactly how well it's going, but guess what? We're talking about it. It's news. The fact that it's news and people will go look at it is what it is. Now, remember, everyone doesn't go to OnlyFans and make money, just like all stocks don't go to the moon. But it's just in case you're looking for that side hustle. We're not looking this way. We're also not judging. We're just going to say that. Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker are legally married. At least sources say this is happening. People.com give us this story right here. Sources say they really did tie the knot. They really are binded by law. They really are a married couple. Does that matter? Probably not very much. Are we still in love with the Kardashians? Probably not quite as much, but people are still keeping up with them. They're still famous. They still take up ink, and there you go. That story was one 8 out of 30 that we had range to talk about. So out of 30 stories that we could pick from, and yes, I'm picking two main stories that I need to. You guys saw that one as top 10 material. Let's get to the Britneys. Number 9 of the top 30 today. NPR.org gives us this version, although I got a text alert on this about a couple hours before I actually posted it. Britney Spears and fiance Sam Azgary announced pregnancy loss. So Britney Spears with the miracle baby, she calls it, after winning her case to get released from her conservatorship and getting a chance to do what she wants to do and getting her IED removed and having a boyfriend and possibly actually getting married. Announced a little bit while back that she was pregnant. So that was all towards the glory of a good new life. She's now announced that they lost the baby. So we're sending out all of the thoughts and prayers to Brittany and her fiance, Sam, for that loss. Trust me, I know the terrible loss of going through that, of losing the baby in the stages of pregnancy before birth. It's not very easy. And Britney Spears on a wave of a high, if you will. In fact, we had the story last week where people kind of got at me, sort of, poking fingers at me. I didn't write the story about her posting a whole lot more nudes on Instagram now that she's free. I guess they probably were pre-nudes because she was, pregnant. I'm not sure how well she was showing in that sense. But this is just this boils down to a case of just relevancy. Britney Spears is still a celebrity and still has to be relevant, and so all that stuff is there. This right here, we care about Britney Spears because she's famous, and we do. We care about Britney Spears because what she went through, because it was our deal. We also care about her going through this time because this is going to be a rough one. So please leave Britney alone. Lay off some Britney stuff for a little bit while they process this. She will do something famous and ultra silly to be back into some sort of wiggle room of ridicule. But right now, it's not the time. The other Brittany we need to talk about, we need to make sure everybody's talking about Brittany with 2 T's, Brittany Griner. Her Russian detention extended after a court appearance. USA Today gives us this one, and this one I'm glad this was as high as it was, 12 out of the 30. So this story was the basic story from early in the weekend. I didn't post the updates onto this one because it just didn't seem to matter in the numbers. But the real deal was Brittany Griner actually got a chance to appear in court, and they're actually extending her detention before she actually gets the chances to get to her trial by some weeks, basically about 2 months or so. So she's going to be in this Russian prison a little bit longer, just awaiting trial. Now, they are playing her up as this big crime lord trying to deal cannabis or take cannabis back to the States and deal it like she was, because, she's not making enough money in the WNBA. So she's going to Russia, not just to play ball and get an extra check, but pick up some cannabis and make extra money when she gets back to the States. Basically because of this, and also she is high profile, the rumors have it that there is talk that Russia does have an idea for a good exchange. They're looking for a guy they're calling the butcher of death. They're looking for a guy that is a serious drug dealer, the guy who has killed many folks. So what's going on with this one? Who knows? Do we care? We definitely care, because this seems like a trumped up charge for a person who, from the outset, from our eyes here in the West, and what little we had was she had a cannabis-based vape in her bag and got picked up for it to turn into a serious crime lord. So what else are we going to do about this? She's also high profile. There's also a conflict in Ukraine going on. So this takes some of the edge off of things going on there. How much edge? We'll see. Whether we will trade a serious crime lord like Brittany Griner for a crime lord they call the Merchant of Death. We'll see that as well. Comments coming in. We'll get to some of those in just a second. Duke student's graduation speech mirrors some language in Harvard address. So plagiarism matters out there, and plagiarism matters especially on higher education, even if you're on your way out the door. A graduation speech done at Duke sounds a lot similar to a graduation speech done at Harvard from a few years back. The culprit, that being the person giving the speech, basically said she was nervous about the speech, and people said, go to YouTube and check out some other speeches and get some inspiration. And apparently she was inspired by lifting a little bit extra than she should have, pulling on full lengths of pieces from the speech, and of course not attributing that. So it's going to be more or less slap on the wrist that they can't really take her diploma away, but they can make it look kind of bad because, you know, she's supposed to be high ordeal at a Duke student, and then she's using the Harvard address. Maybe it's because it was Harvard per se, or maybe it's just because they thought better of her, but it didn't work out as well as it did. So there's that. CNN accidentally sent welcome baskets to laid off CNN Plus employees. That's one of those goofs where it's like, oops. So CNN Plus was supposed to last more than a month. It did not. And essentially, this order was in the works. It basically being processed as things are going. Problem happened is they fired everyone at CNN Plus, or at least reassigned folks that weren't attached to CNN. And the welcome baskets made their way to them anyway, as people are essentially trying to figure out what they're going to do working jobs going forward. And we'll put on my glasses for this one, and we'll get to some of the comments in a second. So that didn't actually help. Israel police seen beating pallbearers at funeral procession of slain Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Ali. And of course, on top of that, we have Independent Probe points to Israel fire in journalist death. Two stories that are definitely attached to each other. Of course, journalist Shireen Abdul Akleh, who is Palestinian American and covering the conflicts, we'll say there in Israel, was caught in crossfire in the middle of a conflict between Palestinians and Israel last week. And there was a back and forth from Israel forces saying that, well, maybe it wasn't us. Now the Independent's inquiry says that, yeah, it probably was y'all, not the Palestinians. What we saw from this was gruesome pictures of her lying on the ground after being shot, and her cohort being there, not knowing exactly what to do in the immediate time frame. Another reporter from another organization was shot at the same time in that melee. And then while the funeral was going on, going down the streets, there were police people just basically beating down the procession as they were taking the funeral. In fact, the casket was dropped in the walk back down the street towards the funeral because of all the insanity. It is what it is. Let's keep going. Drew Brees no longer calling NFL games for NBC because, quote, they were soured on him as a live analyst. BroBible.com giving us that one. I don't think Drew Brees was such a bad analyst, but apparently the goal was to move him forward to being a actual on-screen call games for NBC with the shifting that was going to happen. Mike Tirico coming in and doing the desk stuff while he was waiting for Al Michaels' contract to run out. Al Michaels now going to NFL Network, Amazon, one of those folks. And then, of course, Tirico taking the full chair there. They're doing a lot of shuffling, a lot of things to keep that thing going, keep that thing relevant. But one thing that's not going to happen, Tony Dungy apparently still has his job at the desk. Drew Brees, not so great, because apparently they weren't so happy with his performance. We'll see what this means for the $375 million man, Tom Brady, who has to retire first and then get that check for a 10-year contract, $37 million a year to do something he hasn't ever done yet eventually. And, of course, wrapping up with sports and Arkansas Razorback news, or mostly just Arkansas stuff. Fan catches raccoon in the stands at Razorback baseball game. ArkansasTimes.com has that one. Click the link if you want to get deeper into that one. This one almost top 10, so I don't know if you love raccoons. I don't know if you love Razorbacks. I don't know if you love just odd stories, but there you go. There's that one. So we have a lot of comments on the YouTube channel, so you can go deeper. I'm going to make sure you get your response up there. Marshall Gordon responding to the Brittany Griner story on what's going on in the vapes in her trial. So basically, I can't go deep into it because I'll go along with it. But basically, he's going deeper in detail for what she got popped for there, how big, how bad it is, and basically saying what we're all saying: She's not in jail for the cannabis. She's in jail for the cannabis in her vape. She's in jail for something else. And I'm gonna say it because I'm gonna say it. She's a high profile target. They had a little something they can hold on to her, and they're holding on to her as long as they can because they can do that. And it's literally a they can do that. So our teaser story for tomorrow, this is a story that we may talk about if you say in the engagement that this is one worth doing. Now, going Tuesday through Friday, it's top 15 out of about 30 stories. So we will see how this goes. 9-year-old white boy demands to see neighbor's black daughter slams whip against door. I have so many questions. I have so many comments. I have so many things I want to say, and I promise I will keep them. I will keep them more or less on the PG-13 side if this is one you want to talk about. But you have to give the permission to bring this one up. So if you want permission to bring this thing up, I'll explain it to you right after this quick commercial break because it's about capitalism. However, you can basically follow us on our feeds. I'll go ahead and put that in the scroll right there. And if you follow us on our feeds and engage with the stories, that's how it works out. I'll give you more of the science in just a bit. But first, let's make some money. Maybe. Robinhood is our sponsor for the day. And yes, stocks aren't doing so great, but here's the deal. Stocks, if you're looking for long-term investments, you're not trying to have stocks go to the moon, then the stock market is one of the best places to go. It goes up, it goes down. If you're not looking to take your money out of the market 6 months from now, then putting money in now while things are low or things should, if not rebound, even go further, is a great thing to do. And a great way to do that is via Robinhood. You don't have to put in lots of money. We're not saying bet the farm on Robinhood, but what we're saying is start figuring out how to diversify your savings, your holdings, your manage what you have going on, and try Robinhood as a try. You don't have to pay any brokerage fees. They're doing a lot of cool things in the background to keep themselves relevant because they're having some issues as well. Robinhood stock not doing so great as well, but Robinhood, one of many different platforms for you to trade stocks, trade crypto, trade things like that. They're doing what they can to make the people happy and keep themselves out of trouble. Yes. And of course, give you good chances and good deals. So if you think you are savvy enough to just see that you like a certain stock, you just want to buy a couple shares of it and see what happens, check it out at thisisaconversationproject.com/Robinhood. This is a conversationproject.com/Robinhood. This is an affiliate link and it will give us a little bit for you going in there. But Robinhood will give you a chance to do a lot of great things, do some great things, beefing up their savings. So if you hold on to your money, you make more money there. And of course, they're still giving away a free stock for signing up. You get a free something. It could be Apple stock. It could be Zynga stock. I got Zynga stock. It's not stellar, but it's a free stock. It's a free security. It's making me some money because I joined in for Robinhood. Robinhood is my main source, but to be totally honest, my main source for my online personal trading. It's not a big source. It's more or less a following the market things for my business stuff to keep up with those stories. But it's the main one I use of a few handful, and this is the one that has gotten me the most dividends, pun intended, for that. So check it out at thisisaconversationproject.com/Robinhood. Like I said, affiliate link, so we do get a little piece from this if you choose to use this one. Now, let's talk about them feeds. This is theconversationproject.com is our main website. If you go to that website, you can find out details about what we do at the Conversation Project, bigger things going on there. You can also find out how you can help things go along by clicking on the sponsors link and seeing other sponsors that may take good care of you and take care of us in the process, and partnerships where you can help be officially detailed, attached to us directly to help us keep things rolling here at the place. Our feeds are on Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, the young kids aren't there, but we're looking about substance. This is the Conversation Project is on Facebook and th_conversation on Twitter. Yeah, I do that when I want to enunciate. I do that thing. So go there, follow the stories. Every 50 minutes, we post a new news story, and you can engage with it as it comes in. Make sure you read deeper into it. Don't just gloss over the headlines. And as the stories raise up in time, you get a chance to see literally the stories that you are influencing. We'll pick stories from the top 15 stories for tomorrow through Friday. Today, we're broadcasting to 6 different channels, 2 of them with my name on them, 2 of them with, well, they all have my name on them. 2 different, our LinkedIn page, my personal YouTube page, and my personal Facebook page, along with my J. Cleveland Payne Facebook page, and the 2 Conversation Project pages for Facebook and YouTube. that got longer and more complicated than it should have been. But today we're doing extra stuff for the weekend. So this is why it's so big. Why is it so long? Normally it's much shorter. If you want to get us 5 days a week, the best way to do is to follow us either on our Facebook feed or at our YouTube page. This is theconversationproject.com/YouTube. We're not quite yet at the number of subscribers so that we can get a custom name. So why don't you go subscribe, hit notifications so you know when this thing goes live every single morning at about 5:50 Central Time. We try to hit that. It's rough to get in there. So thank you so much for all the folks who have done all that one. So a few more things you might not have heard. Let's tell what today, things being the 16th of May. Birthdays for today. Danny Trejo, of course, Machete, is 78 years old today. Machete recently had a milestone. I'm not sure milestone, but maybe his bucket list. She had a chance to go to space, joining the Star Wars universe as a part of the Boba Fett's story, although it was more like Mandarin 2.5 or something like that. Janet Jackson in the news as well, 56 years old today. So thank you much, Ms. Jackson, because I'm nasty. But of course, hooking up with Silk Solo and Silk Sonic, those guys, and maybe a collaboration coming up. Who knows? And of course, spotlight on Tucker Carlson, who is basically being, I'm going to say it, nothing but garbage these days. 53 years old today, in the news a lot because of, oddly enough, the shootings that are going along because of people following along and people falling into some weird trap of believing of this great replacement theory, which he's doing a whole lot of promoting, even if he's saying, it's not great replacement. It's just replacing white people with other people, which is what great replacement is. By the way, this is EMS week and police week. So make sure you are showing some love, giving time out to say thanks to all the people who, number one, patrol and keep ourselves safe. And number two, get us back and forth safely and take care of our well-beings in those situations. So we give salutes to the police officers and all the EMS people, emergency medical services people out there all week long. Make sure there's props of that. Going out the door, one more thing you might not have heard. A study found that buying a car is more pleasurable than buying a new home, new technology, or even starting a new relationship. There's some science behind this, and basically comes down to the proximity of usefulness. The car gives you absolute freedom. You can do what you want with it. Meanwhile, house is nice, but it brings more stress. Technology also is smaller pieces, so it doesn't quite last as long. And for relationships, there's the stress of trying to maintain a relationship. There's all of that. Thank you so much for joining us on the ride for the day. We're going to say quick shout outs to people who did join us live, that being Christine with a K, my beautiful wife. Also, Marshall W. Gordon. Make sure you keep on chatting. Thank you so much for joining us and being very vocal in the chat. And Miss Georgia, the leader of the chess club at church, doing what she can to keep our kids doing great things, being intelligent, being engaged, and just being a wonderful person. Thank you so much, Ms. Georgia, for popping in. If you're watching this thing in the future, just pop a comment in and we'll give you some props on the back end. You can watch this thing live as it happens about 5:50 in the morning, Central Time for morning, or in the future as it turns around. It takes a little while to turn around. Not sure why. Once we get more subscribers to the YouTube channel, I think that will help out as well. In the meantime, we are posting more news stories every 50 minutes for you to engage in. I want to talk about that kid at the door with the whip because I've got a lot of things to say about that. We'll see what else we have things to say about. But of course, you vet the stories. You tell us what we're talking about. You tell us, oddly enough, the things that other people might have heard because you're telling us what you heard when you get into. More of those on the way. Follow the feeds. Check out the main website. Subscribe, and be here tomorrow for more godly goodness of the news from, as we say, your news side piece, your tertiary news source, The Conversation Project.